I am so sick of being told that it is a privilege to play sport now.
Yeah.
And that as women, we should just be grateful and be quiet. We are past that. Like, it's almost been like, I'm so grateful that we get to vote. Like, we are so past that now.
Especially as adults, we don't really get to have these moments of joy and silliness that you can have with sport.
A big part of why women's sport isn't progressing is a lack of investment in it. And again, we're at this stage now where it shouldn't just be corporate social responsibility to support the women and, tick the box, we're doing a charity. This is actually a high growth business opportunity that more businesses need to tap into in corporate Australia.
These careers are so unsustainable. Like, how are we ever going to get the product to a point where it's thriving and you have fans coming week in, week out, and like the broadcast is really picking it up and media's really picking it up, if they can't invest their bodies and their time and their minds to this sport because they're being paid so little? Like, it's impossible.
Sport is a massive mirror to society. It's a mirror to how women are seen, how women are valued. And when we had Ben Brown on last year, he said sport is not something we just have to throw our hands up in the air and say this is how it is.
And one of my biggest bugbears ever is that people in my comment sections being like, oh, the women are demanding equal pay. And it's like, there's never been one single AFLW player who has publicly said we want equal pay.
No, let's know a little bit more about you. So tell us, what did sport mean for you growing up and how did you become a sports journalist?
Sport was just...
Welcome to 4TG. Hello everyone and welcome to a very special episode of 4TG where we are celebrating International Women's Day. Now, we are not here to celebrate how far we have come. Today we are here to challenge how far we still have to go with women's sport to get equal pay, equal investment and equal respect. And there is no one better to help us call this out than the legendary sports journalist Marnie Vinall, who is known for calling out the BS, who is at the front of some of the biggest stories in women's sport, and who is someone who genuinely practices what she preaches. So Marnie Vinall, welcome to the 4TG podcast.
Thank you. Oh, I loved hearing that.
You can take that on for your LinkedIn bio.
I will. Maybe I'll just get you to write all my bios that I have to send to people. I'm like, that sounded good.
Done. Now, you are quite busy at the moment. There's a little bit going on in the sporting space. Tell us about what you've been up to these past couple of days even.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you wanted my last couple of weeks, I would not be able to do it because even the Matildas played the Philippines less than a week ago, and that feels like that happened months ago. This particular week, start of March, we've got AFL Men's is back, opening week, which means that I should also say that the NRL Men's is also back. And then Matildas are currently in the Asian Cup, the Formula One's on, and then there's always community sports stories that are happening. And I feel like we often forget that those are just like always happening.
Yes, absolutely. They don't get the limelight they often deserve, which we're going to touch a little bit more about that. But before we start hitting on the hard-hitting sort of issues, let's know a little bit more about you. So tell us, what did sport mean for you growing up and how did you become a sports?
Sport was just, it was really the way I connected with my dad, which I feel like a lot of people have that as kind of an origin story for where their sport fandom has come from, like one of their parents. Some of my favourite memories was getting up at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. to watch the Socceroos in the World Cup with Dad. Like, we would make hot chocolates. And it was just, I feel like the spirit of sport in big tournaments like that, like you really just feel it and you feel connected. My God, it sounds so to be like you feel connected to the country, but like you do. And like you just feel like you were part of something that's so much bigger than yourself. I also grew up very deep in rugby league. So I was a little bunny. I think I'm like a 15-year member of the Rabbitohs or something at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, but we lived in Bathurst, so we used to do the 3-hour round trip to Sydney to go and watch them play. And this is when they were really bad. Like, I just grew up thinking like your team gets the wooden spoon every year. Like, I didn't even realize that you could follow a team that was successful. I mean, I've literally talked about the Socceroos and the Rabbitohs. So. Yeah. But it was just kind of, I think it was more in the background than in the foreground of my childhood. I was a ballet dancer, didn't play any team sports. I was very precious. And then, as I became a teenager and I became an adult, I really felt the romanticism of sport. I feel like it really is where we come together and find community, and it also is such a good access point to talk about other parts of society and life. And it's also where we get to play. I feel like especially as adults, we don't really get to have these moments of joy and silliness that you can have with sport. Like I watch my friends react when the Matildas score a goal.
Yeah.
And it's just like, where else do you see that kind of like outward expression of joy? I just love it so much. I went on a bit of a tangent. You did not ask about my adulthood, and I've started already going there.
So you're a Tillies fan before it was cool to be a Tillies fan.
The most unprofessional thing about me, actually this is probably not the most unprofessional thing about me, but I have a 20 on the back of my arm, and I got that done before I knew I was going to be a sports journalist. It's very bad to have a Matildas number, but that is for Samka, yeah.
Wow. Well, that says a lot.
Yeah.
Die-hard fan through and through.
Yes. I actually love that. I feel like if you walk into my apartment, you can just tell it's my apartment. There's like a Sam Kerr artwork next to Arsenal artwork of 40 Cara Cross and Kylie. There's Darcy Vesio artwork. I was just like, yeah, this is mine.
This is mine.
Yeah.
So Sam and Darcy, if you're listening, which I'm sure they are, of course, but you've got a big fan here.
I also have a Darcy Vesio tattoo, so.
Okay.
They know.
So you do love your work, but how did you get into it?
Oh, that's, it's not a simple answer. I feel like it was one of those like, life just kind of ushered me down this path a little bit. I have always been obsessed with writing. I love words so much. And I did a lot of freelance writing, but often in like the culture and the political space, and kind of looking at like societal issues like pop culture, what's happening around that. Because it was probably very subconsciously thought that like sport was for me, because I mean, there wasn't a lot of people like me. Even now I often get asked, like, well, who do you want to follow in the footsteps of? And it's like, well, there's not a whole lot of women who've kind of done that.
Forging your own path.
So, well, kind of, because even just like, I mean, obviously Caroline Wilson is one of the best journalists that we've ever had in the space, but like what she does and what I want to do are completely separate things, where men get to be like, well, here's a plethora of people that I can kind of look up to. So I think that like that probably did embed itself in my brain a little bit, where it's just like, why would I see myself as like going down this career progression when I didn't even know it was an option? And then the Making the Call sports broadcasting program launched, and I was like, yeah, why not? And Emma and Lucy Race, who had that up, they were very honest with me when I applied, being like, you do not have the resume that a lot of the other people have applied with. Like the caliber that people have applied is pretty high.
Yeah.
Like I did with like Jem Bastiani and Lucy Watkin and people who'd just been around sports media. But they're like, but your passion is very clear.
And you got 2 tattoos to prove it.
Yeah. Now I've got 10. And that literally just gave me like this cohort of other women and non-binary people. And I was just like, oh, I really care about this thing and this area and this scene. And I actually think that I just want to naturally be talking about it all the time. And so I started doing that. I started doing like freelance work and lots of just kind of opportunities in sports media. Like I was a researcher for the Olympics with Channel 7. I did a podcast with Essendon on their Female Footballer of the Year award. And just kind of, yeah, each opportunity led to the next opportunity. And then The Age were like, hey, we have no female sports reporters, which is not the only reason we're talking to you, but would you like to come on board? And I was like, well, I would be so stupid to say no to an opportunity like that. Even I still remember like calling my dad before my interview at The Age just to be like, I just need you to help myself like calm down so that I go into this level-headed, because like, what do you mean I'm walking into The Age for a job interview? That's crazy. Yeah, and now I'm at the ABC.
Wow. So you have been reporting basically since AFLW started. So tell us, not just with AFLW, but in your time as a female sports reporter, how has the coverage for women's sport changed?
Oh, drastically. I think that's the other reason that I kind of was able to progress so far so quickly in my 20s, is because all of these publications and all of these networks were kind of like, we should probably get women involved somehow. And also it was when women's sport, people started to really, I don't want to say really take note of it because I think people are still not really taking note of it, but they were kind of like, oh, maybe we should get someone to write about AFLW. And even at the time, I mean, I had calls from people at networks, and this is when I'm in my mid-20s, so like 5 years ago, being like, do you know anything about cricket? We really need a woman to come and talk about cricket. Be like, actually, it's not my area of expertise. And they're like, oh, do you know anyone? And it's because the coverage then was still just getting off the ground that everyone was kind of like, oh, there's no women in this space. And we were all being like, there's so many women in this space, but they weren't amplified at all. When now I feel like, I mean, I could name 10 women working across AFLW alone right now. And I don't think that was the case 10 years ago. I think there's a lot more people that are getting involved in a lot more opportunities, and whether that's like boundary or journalism or writing, whatever it is. And so there has been this really big uptick in women getting involved. I would say that this is a conversation I had with Rana Hussain, so I will credit her completely. But it is the kind of thing where a lot of places are like, oh, we need to diversify. We'll get white blonde women in first. And I'm very, like, if you look across the AFL particular landscape, and I'm saying that in particular because it's what I know best, it is a lot of petite white blonde women, myself included. And so I do think we have a very, very long way to go in the types of women that we get, but there has been an increase, which has been so pleasant to see. In saying that, you'll still only usually get one woman whenever you watch a show. Whenever there's like a hosting panel, there usually only be like one woman on it. But there is an increase. And so I will say that that's step forward.
That's right. Sometimes you got to take it, don't you?
Yeah. So we'll take it. But also the type of coverage of women's sport, I think that it's starting to get more serious, which is so pleasing because I'm really done with how cool is it that women also get to play footy now. Like we did that 10 years ago.
Exactly. It's time to shift that narrative.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And like it is cool, but we're not, whenever we talk about the AFL men's, we don't say like how cool little boys get to watch this.
Yes.
That's never mentioned. Like we actually just talk about like the tackles and the goals and the hits and the marks. Like we can actually do that with women as well. And so that's one of my main gripe areas, but I do think that there are people that are doing some really good stuff in that space, and that hopefully will snowball.
Yes.
Keep going.
Absolutely.
We hope.
So if we look at the landscape of women's sport at the moment within Australia, in 2023, we obviously had the Women's World Cup, and that was a watershed moment, and we saw such momentum off the back of that. However, since then, we've seen that momentum kind of come to a halt in a lot of areas and regress in others. So in your opinion, if you had to summarise the state of women's sport in Australia today in one sentence, what do you reckon it would be?
Doesn't get enough credit for how good it really is. I don't think that encapsulates it all, but I get asked, I mean, in the past week, I've been asked twice by people on boards, what do I think about AFLW, like where AFLW is at? And my answer to that is that, like, I think the product is absolutely not, I don't want to say it's where it should be, but it's good. Like, it's really good. It's such a good, entertaining product, but everything around it is not where it should be at all. Like, I'll take friends to AFLW games and they'll be like, I didn't realize it was like that. And I was like, yeah. And like, these are like, even just I was on the boundary for a game last year and being just like a meter away from the actual action, I was like, oh my God, it's kind of scary. Like it's so quick and the hits are so hard and it's like the skills are just immaculate. But I mean, the crowds aren't where they're supposed to be. The viewership isn't anywhere near where it should be. I don't think the promotion, the coverage, I don't think anything around the actual sport is where it could be 10 seasons in. And I think you can say that for probably a lot of other sports as well. Even the Matildas, I mean, I think that the Matildas are just I've got so much romanticism around that side because I grew up with them and I love them so much. But watching them play is just, like, they're so good. And it's so interesting watching even just like the Matildas of today to the Matildas a few years ago and all of these different, formations and like pairings, and it's so intriguing. But I think that the rest of the public doesn't really have an understanding because they might have only seen them at the Women's World Cup. Even that, they made the semi-final against England. They were kind of punching in that tournament. I mean, people that have followed the Matildas forever, something amazing was going to happen for us to beat England. England, but also like the resourcing that England have. And so I think that there was maybe this like idea of like, oh, the Matildas are like up there with the rest of the world. And heading into this Asian Cup, it's been really interesting to watch the rest of Australia not really have an idea of like where Australia sit. Like they're 15th in the world, which is so cool given like our population size and the resourcing that we have. And even just the fact that like they're so scattergun all over all these different clubs, because it's not like the A-Leagues is anywhere near where the WSL is. Like 15th in the world is remarkable. But I think that if you ask a person on the street following the World Cup, they'd probably say, what? We made it to a semi, 5th, 6th. And so there's just like not that knowledge where like, I think that there is that knowledge around like beloved men's teams, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's kind of like we jump on women's sport when it's a trend and it's hitting the headlines, but in the quiet seasons, we don't really know where it's at or what's happening.
Yes, very much so.
And it's interesting that you mention, especially the Matildas, because if we look at them, they obviously have their sponsorships have increased quite a lot with Commonwealth Bank. However, just the level below the A-Leagues women, their average salary is $30,000.
Yeah.
Which is tiny in comparison to the men's, which is $182,000. Yeah. And then we start looking at, AFL and AFLW. AFLW by 2027 is increasing quite a bit. So it's going to be around $82,000 average salary, whereas the men's will be $519,000.
Sorry, that's comical.
Yeah, 6 to 7 times the difference. But not only the players, like if we look at the AFLW coaches, they're getting around 100 to 120K a year, the men's 750K. So this is not just a crisis for athletes, but it's a crisis for the whole team, the medical staff behind them, the coaches, the high performance and everyone. How can we expect them to want to stay in women's sports when they're getting paid, around like a seventh of what they can in men's sports? It's never going to be sustainable.
Yes. Oh, and because like I love that you talked about that, because I often feel like people do just look at like the top level and the coaches, but like, sorry to keep using AFLW as my main example.
It's always mine too.
No one
what I know.
Well. But it was only in the past few years that we've started to see head coaches become full-time. It's very rare for any of the clubs to have any assistant coaches that are full-time, which means that not only are the head coaches in women's getting nowhere near what the men's head coaches are, but they're bearing a lot more of the responsibility of the entire programs, and that is burning them out. It's a really heavy burden. And as you say, like all the medical staff and all the trainers and like the ripple effects that has on the end product is so immense. I was out this morning just at an A-League club briefly, and I was just like, I was really thinking about it, just being like, these careers are so unsustainable. Like, how are we ever going to get the product to a point where like it's thriving and you have fans coming like week in, week out, and like the broadcast is really picking it up and media is really picking it up, if like they can't invest their bodies and their time and their minds to this sport because they're being paid so little? Like, it's impossible.
Exactly.
It's just impossible.
Yeah. And we talk about the development all the way down through to grassroots. So the elite levels might be increasing a little bit, but even for VFLW, which I'm a part of, the difference is $0, or I think there's 3 or 4 clubs maybe that pay up to $50 a game to a jump that will be $82,000 by, 2027. So the difference being we have to work full-time or work several part-time jobs to make ends meet. We have to study full-time. We have to often pay for our own medical bills. We have to pay for our own travel and things like that. So it's the difference between one level and the burnout is just unbelievable. And I can totally understand why. But it's at the stage now where it's like, why do we have to be paid nothing? Like, seriously, who do we have to be asking, saying, how is it fair that the men equivalent are getting paid? VFL's a tough one because it can be from $5,000 all the way up to $100,000 in a year. But why is it that we are still getting paid nothing in this day and age at the semi-elite level?
And one of my biggest bugbears ever is that people in my comment sections being like, oh, the women are demanding equal pay. And it's like, there's never been one single AFLW player who has publicly said we want equal pay.
No.
It's always, we want pay to be able to build the product.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember one being like, someone literally asked me, they're like, do you honestly think that like Tom DeConing and Chloe Malloy should be on the same salary? I was like, who the F ever said that?
Exactly.
Like, I've never said that. Also, I could make an argument for it if you really wanted.
Yep.
But no, like, all of these women have always been such advocates for their sport, never for themselves. They've never been like, I want all of this money. I deserve to be paid all this money. It's always, it is impossible to be able to grow their game without being paid like a sustainable wage. It's always about like being a custodian of the sport. It's one of, the
pet peeves. And the same deal as we were saying earlier, we want our staff to be paid more.
Yeah.
Because they deserve it, because they've got families to go to. And at the moment, it's kind of like it's an intern level where, you know, you come and you volunteer your whole time. You're either unpaid or you're underpaid. And then all our good staff leave because they have to. It's not sustainable. So we're not only advocating money for us. And again, we're not asking in the next year to be equivalent to men's pay, because that's not how it goes. But we want to start paying something, and we want our staff to be paid more as well.
And we're losing people to injuries because the medical staff is lacking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who do you play for?
I play for this year Carlton.
Oh, sick. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I think Carlton as a club do their women's program
They do.
pretty well.
The resources are fantastic, and the coaching and everything there is brilliant. So cannot fault them in any way, shape or form.
I can, no, I'm just kidding.
How long have you got? So a big part of why, you know, women's sport isn't progressing is a lack of investment in it. And again, we're at this stage now where it shouldn't just be corporate social responsibility to support the women and, you know, tick the box for doing a charity. This is actually a high growth business opportunity that more businesses need to tap into in corporate Australia. If you look at the stats at the moment, we are $125 million per year less funded than the men, but we have 50% growth on brand sponsorships and better brand awareness. And this is the stat that I really love. For every $1 invested in women's elite sport visibility, it generates $7 back in customer value. Now, I've said this before, I'm not a finance bro, but you do the math, right? That's pretty damn good. So why are they not investing more in us?
Oh, it drives me. It's like the economical benefits of women's sport. Like, I just don't understand why like the AFL is literally like, maybe we should go to China or India for our new growth market. When I'm like, the women are right there, like literally right there. Like, we saw the economic benefits from the boom of the Matildas. Even just women as fans. Like, right now the F1 are seeing record crowds. And a lot of that is in part is because when Drive to Survive happened and during the COVID years, all of these new audiences started getting into Formula One. And a big part of that was women, and like the female fandom just like surged. And the sport was like, okay, let's try and like buy back into those women and girls. And now they're seeing record crowds. Also, like, all of the research shows that women spend more money than men.
Exactly.
Oh.
So who do you want to target?
Like, I've literally have like drafted emails to Essendon being like make women's track pants. I don't understand.
Yes.
Like, they will outsell the men's, I promise you. Like, just include us more.
Exactly. And it says a lot about the media coverage around it as well, where even for the AFLW, like they were saying it's going to be a $200 million loss instead of saying it's a $200 million investment.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a lot that needs to be said around corporate Australia too, who it's almost greenwashing or sport washing, whatever you call it, when they say, yeah, we support women's sport. But, you know, you have to ask questions, how? How are you actually supporting it? Don't hide behind this mission statement. Like, A, how much money are you putting towards it? But not only that, how long are you putting that investment in? Because like if it's a, you know, just a tournament, well, that's just for your own marketing. So you need to be investing 5 to 10 years, then you are a supporter of women's sport.
Like, the amount of just being like, I say this with W all the time, where it's just like, well, we gave it a go, it didn't work. Sorry. And it's just like, okay, are you going to do that for GWS's crowds? Like, love you, GWS, love you, Gold Coast. But the AFL were like, okay, that's a long-term investment for us. But the same language can't be used for AFLW? Are you joking? it's so short-sighted and it's so like shooting themselves in the foot. Like, as you mentioned, like the ROI on women's sport is just like astronomical. It's so stupid for sports to not be buying in properly to like their women's programs. It makes me very mad because it's so obvious. Like, it's so obvious. Anyway,
that's right. And it just goes to show that it's like it is a business case at the end of the day. If you remove the name from this business case and all the feelings and emotions that it brings, because when we talk about it from gender inequality, well, straight away people get a bit defensive. But if you just looked at it as a business case, business X versus business Y, you'd look at the charts and the ROI and you'd be like, this is an amazing business opportunity.
Yeah.
Why are we not investing more into it?
And even just like invest wisely. Like I, as much as like, oh, we live in a capitalist society and I don't want to like pump up all of this too much, but like genuinely seeing like Mecca at the AO and seeing Mecca at the Formula One and it being so embraced by all of these women. And I'm just like, okay, do that AFL. Like actually. And it's just like, so why is the AFLW not partnered with Mecca yet? Like, where's like this, like be strategic about it. Like you can't just like take the men's strategic marketing model, all of it, and then just like fit the women's into that and expect that it would work. Like why aren't we
tailoring
being
it
creative? Yeah.
Exactly.
And tailoring it better.
Yeah, no, 100%. And sport too, which you kind of alluded to earlier, sport is a massive mirror to society. It's a mirror to how women are seen, how women are valued. And when we had Ben Brown on last year, which bless that man and wish there was 1,000 more of him, honestly.
Yeah.
But he said sport is not like, it's not something we just have to throw our hands up in the air and say, this is how it is. You know, sport puts things in perspective. It puts us at the forefront. We can really make a statement by supporting women's sports more. And then by default, that's going to filter through to society and how women are actually represented.
One of my favorite pieces of research is that girls that play sport growing up are more likely going to get leadership positions when they're in the workplace because like the confidence it instills, the assertiveness,
resilience, teamwork.
Yes, drive.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, like team sports are just so good when you were growing up for your development. Like I kind of wish that I might be a bit, I would cry less maybe if I played footy and not going, not that, not a knock on Valley, but like I love just how women's sports are just changing this, like society's perception of women as a whole. Like it's so cool. Like even just like I'm 5'2", I'm fairly like small. Like, I've only done one season of community footy. I loved being like properly hit and like put to the ground because nowhere else in my life am I treated like that. Like I'm always treated so delicately. Yeah. And it was just like, and I feel like that like even like rewrote my brain a little bit, being like, yeah, like I am made of like soft tissue and muscle just like men are. Like,
that's right.
Yeah.
We learn to trust our bodies more, don't we?
Yes. Yeah. And that I can like be bruised and heal and carry on. Like, oh my goodness. Yeah. The rewriting of women's sport, it's honestly like I get really emotional watching AFLW sometimes if I'm in a particular mood because I'm just like watching women do that.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Especially when they've come back from having 2 kids and things like that. Like that is just incredible.
It's so incredible. And even just like, I think my favorite thing about sport is like watching people do things that like I could never do. You know what I mean? Like especially coming out of the Winter Olympics, I'm like, fair enough. You do that. Yeah. Like it's even just like sometimes like when they're in the air, like in aerials being like, that's a human body.
Yes.
That's crazy. And yeah, and like watching the Tillies being like, I could never. And that's so cool. Like that's like oh my goodness. Yeah. We often talk about like, the representation of like women's sport on young girls, but it's the representation also on like adult women and also on men. Because men get to watch women do that and be like, huh, okay.
Exactly. And young boys get to grow up watching that and realizing that we are just as strong and we can be tackled and we don't need to be pampered. But equally, we need to be respected. And if they see us in the change rooms, then it's not so much of a, what are they doing in our change rooms? Like I remember when I first went down to Carlton to check it out and I saw that their gym was just incredible. And the first thing I asked is like, oh, do we get to use that? Like me. I'm like, what? Kylie, what the hell?
That's so cool.
But seriously, it's just like I feel like an imposter because like that's the men's space, you know? And I'm still questioning, like, should we be able to use that?
Yeah.
God, it just says so much.
All this messaging is like so deeply rooted in all of our brains. Oh, my favorite thing about Carlton's like gym and change rooms is that they are by square foot exactly the same like women's and men's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they gave me a little tour. But even just like they made sure to put like Darcy Vesio on like the walls, and like I haven't been inside as you would have, and I don't know, but like who's on like the walls when you go, you know, into the sanctuary, what's the word? Sanctum of Carlton. But like when you just like go through, like it's Abby McKay on the wall and like Mimi Hill on the wall, and it's like they're just as prominent as the men's players. I love that.
Yes. No, it says a lot.
It does.
It does. But one thing that I really want to touch on with you, which is a massive gripe of mine, is that I am so sick of being told that it is a privilege to play sport now. And that as women, we should just be grateful and be quiet. Stop demanding more. Stop being the squeaky wheel. We are past that. Like, it's almost been like, I'm so grateful that we get to vote. Like, we are so past that now. So it's time that we start demanding. We need to demand more respect at the basic level. Like, we look at the Kyneton women's team, okay? You reported on that. Tell us exactly about that and sort of what that represented in the broader schemes of society.
Yes. So if we head back to 2024, the Kyneton Football Netball Club, their women's team, 30 plus players decided that they were going to leave that club because they had claims of that it was a horrible, volatile environment, that they were constantly mistreated and disrespected. The club does deny those claims. But the women then, it was so interesting watching this story unfold because they tried to get into 3 local leagues and they had trouble doing so. And all this time, you know, they're really going to AFL Victoria. They're going to the Riddell District Netball League. They're going to the Central Victorian Football Netball League. Like, they're going to all of these places. And it was kind of like these places couldn't really be bothered to deal with that story. And they eventually did find somewhere to play, which is fantastic. But one of the biggest lessons, I think, from this entire saga was that their experience is so common. So even in like the initial reporting that I did, I spoke to women across the state who, and it's so hard to also speak about mistreatment at clubs because when you buy into a club as a player, you can't talk badly about your club or other clubs in the league, which makes it really hard to talk about mistreatment on any kind of level. So all of these women were talking to me anonymously, which great that they even, because, you know, it's still a brave thing to do that. And even the Change Our Game research from 2023 showed that 30% of women's players across the country have thought about leaving because of disrespect and mistreatment. And a lot of that comes down to, you know, even just resourcing, where especially on Thursday nights where men and women often both have to train, the women will be given like a quarter of the oval, and even then the men will often like encroach on that space and run through it and just not take their presence seriously. And I think that it was when AFLW came in 2017, it was like this giant boom and all of these women and girls started playing, which is awesome. And there's all of these clubs that were like, oh, okay, well, we better get a women's team, which is beneficial for them. But like these women are paying to play. It's also like so beneficial for the community. Like these clubs are benefiting from all of these women and girls that want to play. And some clubs did it really well. Even to today, you can see clubs that, shout out to West Brunswick, they always come up, as everyone always just loves to tell me how good they are. So shout out to West Brunswick, doing it really well. Even like water park animals, like I'm friends with a lot of the men's players there, and the way that they talk about their women's team, and I'm just like, cool, like you're talking about the women, just how you would talk about the men. But there were a lot of clubs who just treated their women's side, and still do, as like a burden. And they didn't want to have to share resources. They didn't want to have to make room. And women's programs need different things to men's programs. And so making those adjustments and being willing to accommodate all of these women and girls, so many clubs just, they didn't. They just didn't. So they tacked on a women's team and they were like, okay, job done. We're not going to resource it properly. We're not going to staff it properly. We're not going to make sure that they're included in club events properly. And it falls back to, but they get to play. But they get to play now.
What a privilege.
What a privilege. They should be so grateful that they get a chance and an opportunity to play now. Where I think even at the time, there was a lot of women being like, that's kind of a bad hand, but okay, like we get to play. But now, like 10 years later, there is that kind of like, no, like we're so sick of this. We're so sick of this. I talked to a woman the other day who wanted to be anonymous for a story, and I found it really hard talking, like just listening to her, because, you know, she was saying that there were all of these problems at her club to the point where she would never share a beer after trainings with the men because the way that they spoke was just like that locker room talk, but like it's, you know, out into where you have shared meals, and the way that they talk was just like something she didn't want to be a part of. They didn't have like equal accessing to the grounds and the fields, and, you know, genuinely she said that the men would just run through them and like not give a fuck. And it was just like having to put up with that disrespect so that she could play the game she loves with her friends. And it was such a compromise that I found really difficult listening to, because it's like, okay, well, if you're getting all of this disrespect, just leave, like the Kyneton women did. And then what? You're an outcast? You don't get to play footy anymore? Like, that sucks.
Yeah, the system's set up to keep us quiet.
Yes. It, like, literally written into contracts.
Yeah.
You have to be. Like, it's... And then, yeah, if someone does raise a problem, then they're seen as a troublemaker and a burden, rather than advocating for not just themselves but their teammates. I mean, it falls on clubs and it falls on leagues. Like, leagues do not want to have to be bothered about these problems. I can tell you that firsthand because I've tried to bother them about it. And they don't even want to have conversations. It's very much just like a shut up shop kind of situation. And then the repercussions on women and non-binary people who speak out are immense. They maybe don't get to play the game that they love, but also like a lot of clubs are like the beating hearts of their communities. And so the ripple effects that can have on communities. So it's not worth it. And again, it all just comes back to, well, why can't they just be grateful that they get to play?
Exactly. And people feel that they have to put up with it and go anonymously, like not all clubs. And you see some of the stuff that's happening, and not only do they disregard it, they mock the girls and women who come out on sexual assault and things like that. And like you see these stories and you'd think, oh, surely that happened 10 years ago. This is happening like last year. And I just cannot believe that in this day and age that men are still treating women like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, for God's sakes, you have daughters. Like, how can you honestly say that stuff and walk by the comments that you do and not stand up for it? Because you've got a wife, you've got a daughter, you've got a sister, and that's a level of respect that you show towards them. Like, it's just disgusting.
So it's awful. And even if not, women are still women. They're human beings. They deserve respect.
Exactly.
I had all these WhatsApp messages from a men's like WhatsApp group chat leaked to me like a few months ago. I was actually like at the Australian Open when this happened, and I had to like take half a day because I was so distraught. I was like, I can't believe these men's players are speaking about like women and people of color like this. I was like properly distraught. And it really kind of like fucked my brain up a bit, because I was like walking around being like, is this how people still actually speak in like their private group chats, which was a lot of members in the group chat. And it really messed me up. And like, I sometimes I think there's like, maybe because I exist, I mean, across men's and women's sports, but like my community is really like heavily women's sport. Like, oh my God, am I just super ignorant? I don't know. Like, this is awful. And then like, but this is the environments that we're asking women to exist in.
That's right. And again, it says a lot about, you know, the structure that is keeping us quiet. And even myself, last year when I started this podcast, I was sort of told that this could implicate my, ability to get contracts and things.
Yeah, totally.
And I said to them, I was like, I could not care less. I'd prefer to give up my career so that future girls don't have to go through the same shit that we have to. But how terrible is that? That like, I'm not here spreading bad news or fake news. You're trying to raise awareness. But the people who are saying that they support women's sport, they're trying to stop you from openly, creating this awareness. And why would young athletes stand up for themselves when they've worked so hard to get into the positions, even though they're probably not getting paid anyway? So it's like, what have you even got to threaten?
Oh, yeah. The consequences that women athletes can experience when they, and even like we're using the term speak out. Sometimes it's as little as like, oh, it'd be cool if we had more resources. And then they'll get a mad slap on the wrist, sometimes worse, from like their governing bodies. Like, how is that productive? And how can governing bodies genuinely say that they have the best interests of like the progression of women's sport at heart?
What do you recommend female athletes do? Like, what can they do to try and promote women's sport without getting a slap on the wrist?
Leak all the stories to me.
And you'll do it for them.
Yeah.
Gossip girl.
You can slap me on the wrist all you want. But yeah, even, I mean, I'm joking, but all of my reporting has not been of no consequences. It's been really interesting watching the way that I get treated in the industry change from clubs and leagues and bodies. So fascinating. Because I do think it's just like, oh, this is just like a super nice bubbly girl who like loves AFLW, and then I'm like, hey, could you pay him better? And they're like, we hate her.
She's a threat. Get her out of here.
Yeah, get her out of here. I find that a really hard question to kind of tackle because I want women athletes to like thrive as much as they possibly can. And often when you stick your head above the parapet, it gets chopped down a little bit. And I don't want that for anyone. And so, this is a good way to tie it into International Women's Day. Do it as a collective. Do it together. It's one of my biggest gripes as well. This is like International Women's Day was created by the UN to serve the collective, and it's actually about addressing the inequalities like at the ground level. And now it's been corporatized and like white feminine's taken it over, and it's just like, look at this woman who's in charge.
Yes, love that.
We're doing feminism really well. And so, I mean, like, it's always easier to do things together. Even I found that in my reporting, even with the Kyneton, like it was those 30, and like those women and gender diverse people, like it was not easy. And I don't ever want to be like, because I think history will look back at like, oh, wow, look at these women who went out on their own and what like a great story of resilience and like, facing adversity. Yes, but also they were put through the ringer. Like they, like the way that they were treated for 15 months and how emotionally taxing that was, like it takes actual work, and often it takes like a piece of you, and there'll be consequences. And so doing things together is always easier than doing things alone. But also, I don't know that many people in my life who advocate for themselves and regret it. I've seen a lot of athletes say things that are scary, and even like that tell stories that are sensitive, that take a lot of like courage to do. And sometimes like the day of can be a hard day. And I think it's like okay to be realistic about that. And maybe the week of, it can be quite anxiety inducing if you get an email from someone in the governing body saying, hey, maybe don't talk about yourself. But in the long run, like very few ever regret it.
No. And change doesn't happen being silent. Like you actually have to stand up for something. Change happens when the collective put pressure on these organizations. And that is what it's going to take to create change. So stand up for something. Like it might be scary. They will threaten you with things.
Yeah.
But as a collective, it's very hard to sack a whole team, isn't it? Instead of one.
They'll try.
They'll try.
They will axe hold.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is.
It's so hard. Because it's also just like, I feel very strongly that like a lot of women athletes, by nature of being a woman and being a professional athlete, their entire existence is just an act of advocacy and really resistance and feminism. But they shouldn't have to be an advocate to play. You know what I mean? Like Like, we're asking so much of women athletes, I think, so often, and some of them want to be, and that's great. Like, some of them really, really want to be loud and vocal and are so tapped into the progression of their sports and the inequalities of their sports, and some women just want to
Go and play.
yeah. And they should also be able to do that.
Yes.
Because I often think that, like, sometimes when I'm asking, like, if it's a captain's day and there's been, like, the CBA's on, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to have to ask all these captains about the CBA. And sometimes I'm like, maybe they want to be asked about, their forward line structure.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, and not be political pawns in everything.
yes, kind of. Yeah. So, yeah, hopefully we get to the stage where they can just play. We don't have to be like, hey, show us your paycheck.
Exactly. So what do you think it's going to take in the next 5 to 10 years to see tangible improvements?
I mean, I think that fans have a lot more power than they might think. We see changes happen all the time in men's sport because fans are super vocal. And, like, going back to that gratefulness thing, I think that there's a lot of that put on fans of women's sport as well. Like, you should be grateful that you even have a league or a code to be a fan of. But, like, when fans voice things in numbers, when they, like, are loudly saying how they feel about their sport, there are times when, like, that sports just have to listen. Like, there's no way around it. Even just when Essendon and Hawthorn's first game in 2022 in the AFLW was originally scheduled at ETA Stadium, and then it sold out, and that stadium had a capacity technically of like 8,000, but that can fit like 4,000. And so it got moved to Marvel, and then they had 13,000 at Marvel. The AFLW Grand Final has been at Princes Park for the past two, back to back, and then it was in Springfield. Anyway, the last 3 or 4 grand finals have sold out within a day, and yet the AFL aren't willing to move it to a bigger venue or bigger stadium to continue to be loud about that. Continue to be loud about them. Force them to move it. I think that there's this kind of just like, oh, well, like, that's the hand we've given, so we will accept it. Whereas it's like, no, like, if you're loud about your sport, the sport has to pay attention. But also the responsibility, I think, that fans have, and this goes back to women's sport as well, where I do think that, like, men's sport fans get a lot easier run. I know, because I'm a fan of both men's and women's sports, and it's much easier to be a fan of men's sport. Like, I can just go to the MCG and watch Essendon play. Easy. I wouldn't be able to watch Essendon women play if I didn't have a car. The times are not as accessible
conducive whatsoever.
And so, like, it does take effort to be a women's sports fan more so than a men's sport fan. But in saying that, like, if you want your sport to grow, that you love, and you love these athletes, like, show up.
Yeah.
And that's even just, like, read media about them. Because, like, media channels are paying attention to the interest of media articles, like, consume media around them. I don't want to tap into commercialism, but, like, buy merch, like, just do it. Be really visible about your love for the sport. Like, make TikToks, make Instagram, like, that stuff, like, builds momentum. Other people then jump on board it, and then sports and governing bodies, like, take note of that stuff. So as much as I'm kind of like, I don't want to ask women's sports fans to do more, because I think they already are doing a lot. And they also shouldn't have to. Like, sometimes it's okay to just love what you love, and the world is such a tough place sometimes, and the cost of living crisis, and sometimes you just want sport as your escape.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's such a power that women's sports fans have, and if they tapped into that properly, then they can also help drive the sport.
Yes. Yeah. So we can all do things on an individual level.
Yeah.
You don't have to be, out protesting. Just as simple as, like, turning the women's game on. Even if you can't watch it, just turn it on.
Turn it on.
Yeah.
Turn it on. Oh my God. And, like, show up. Yeah.
Yeah. Show up, and this is the other thing too. Don't just say you support women's sport. How? How do you actually support it?
I agree.
Yeah.
I so agree. And also, like, be so loud about, and self-assured about how you want to be a supporter, because, I mean, I have, like, Matilda's nails right now, and, like, I will tap into the whole, like, friendship bracelets arc. And I
Yeah.
love all that like girly pop stuff when it comes to sport. But oh my God, I love rabid women at sports games so much. Like we saw it during the Women's World Cup. I see it at AFLW quite a lot. Obviously, like don't be yelling things you shouldn't be yelling. Never yell at the umpire.
Keep it PG.
Keep it PG.
Yeah.
Keep it respectful. But like you can be feral. Like I love being feral. Like oh my goodness. Like get off her. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be polite.
Yeah.
Being a women's sports fan doesn't mean you have to like politely be like, go the girls.
Yeah.
Like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. So be more feral.
Yeah, kind of. We need the
Respectful.
feralification
Yes.
of women's sport.
Yes.
But like we see that at like, I honestly think that like that's why the WSL, and like I go for Arsenal, so I know about Arsenal more than some of the other WSL teams. But like the content that is fed to me and the way that I watch those like women and men interact with that team is exactly how I watch people interact with men's teams, where it's not just like, I don't want to put down the way that like other people consume sport, but it's not just kind of like, yeah, the girls, where it's literally just being like, why is that player playing in that position, and what, you know, being like that matchup is bad, and like, I wish I had better, more like technical examples to give that made me sound like I knew what I was talking about. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes women's sports fans maybe don't feel as confident to do that because they don't see it as much. Like even sometimes the way, like I self-assess the way that I act at men's footy compared to women's footy. The community's different, the environment's different. But like, I'm like, yeah, I think I am nicer at women's games because I feel like I should be. Also because I'm completely unbiased and I would never be yelling in favour of one team over the other.
No.
My favourite is an Essendon women's player once was like, after a game, she was like, yeah, so I could hear you.
You're like, that wasn't me.
I was like, that, I would never. That's so unprofessional. I would literally never.
I love it though. Like at the end of the day, we shouldn't even have to say women's sport. Like it's just sport, and that's where we want to get to.
Yes.
Take the gender out of it. It's just sport.
Yeah.
And you know, women can play it just as well as men can.
I love all of the with the USA hockey drama. All of the tweets being like, can we please call it hockey and men's hockey? Like we're watching people like self-combust in anger doing this. It's so fun. Just call it hockey and men's hockey.
Yeah.
We should do that.
We should do that. Try that out.
AFLM and AFL.
Yeah, that'll stir a few people. Now, because it is International Women's Day and P3 Port Melbourne have been very kind and are giving a listener and a friend free recovery access, can I get you to be the person who draws it and announces the winner?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Grab my laptop. Now, we've got a little bit of a randomizer wheel. So let me just get this sorted.
I like to be rested and recovered.
Maybe. We'll see what we can do. All right. Where are we? Here we go. So you just need to press on that. Just press the keyboard if you can. So drum roll, please.
Oh, that made no sense. Oh, whoopsies. It's Lucy Mutton.
Lucy Mutton. Excellent. Well, congratulations, Lucy Mutton.
Exciting. I was like, how do I make this exciting?
The suspense. Well, thank you very much, P3, for providing Lucy and a friend a recovery session. And thank you, Marnie, for announcing that.
Oh my God, you're so welcome.
Very exciting.
All my skills, I'll add that to my resume.
Absolutely, we can add that in. Now, we ask all our guests, knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell your 16-year-old self?
So I actually saw, oh my goodness, because I always see it written down, Alyssa Liu, but is that how you pronounce her last name? Liu, the ice skater from the Olympics.
Not sure.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Because I only ever like read coverage.
Yes.
But I was like, oh my God, I actually don't know how you pronounce her name. Anyway, there was a quote that I saw that came up on my Instagram literally earlier today where she was asked this question, being like, what would you tell your younger self? And she was like, nothing. She has to figure it out to get here.
Ooh,
I know. So like, honestly, my answer is so just like deeply personal that everyone will be like, that's boring.
Yeah.
Be nicer to my parents growing up. Like, honestly, just like, don't push them away when you're a teenager. Because all of like my work lessons and my life lessons and my, you know, I feel like I got to learn that to get here. I got to go through it.
Absolutely. And I do
Yeah.
like the parents ones. Parents are your biggest fans and we don't appreciate them enough, do we?
Like, actually, I love my mum and dad so much. And sometimes I'm like, "Oh my God, just like reply to their text more promptly." It's actually not that hard.
No, that's right. And it means a lot to them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Very good. Well, Marnie, thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy week to come and discuss all things women's sport. And to the listeners, this is your opportunity to show that you do care about women's sport. So I'm asking you to share this with someone, share it on social media. We need more attention and more visibility around women's sports. And this is something you can directly do today to help promote it. So, Marnie, I look forward to everything you're going to do in the future. But on behalf of all women in sport, thank you so much for what you're doing and giving us a platform to showcase our skills and, yeah, promote a better future for us.
Oh, this was awesome. Thank you so much. And for what you do, this is really cool.
Oh, thank you very much. We'll catch you next time. You've been listening to 4TG, where the future of women's sport is being shaped, one story at a time. If today's episode hit home, subscribe, rate 5 stars, and send it to someone who needs that push. Stay in the loop at 4TG_podcast or on 4TG.com. We'll see you next time. Same mission, same movement. This one was for the girls.